Thanks, everyone, for being here, and thanks to VELUX for the invitation. I'm going to continue the trend that Kinzia said about talking about things that are not exactly our main field of expertise, but that, along with the way we became really passionate about and we feel strongly about. So my topic today is a bit different from what I normally do, and is focused on the epidemic of myopia that we're seeing worldwide, and especially what, as a built environment expert, we can do about that. So I'll start from the basics. What is myopia? So myopia is also called short-sightedness or nearsightedness, and is a condition in which someone cannot clearly see things that are far away. So you would be able to read normally, but if you need to look farther away, then you need eye correction. And typically we use glasses or lenses. And you might say, okay, we have correction. It's something that we all normally wear. It might be also fashionable. What's the big deal? It's not, epidemic sounds maybe too much of a big word. But research has really now found out and quantified how bad, how much worse it's getting. And that's quite unbelievable. So from the 90s, we had worldwide 24% of the population that was myopic. And already in 2023, that increased to 36%. And the projection from the latest research show us that by 2050, 50% of the population might be myopic. And even more worryingly, 10% of that part of the population will develop high myopia, which is a much more severe condition where, for which correction like glasses are not anymore sufficient. With high myopia, you're really at risk of requiring surgery and retinal detachment, glaucoma, many other side effects and illnesses that will make you really suffer a strong disability, not just something you can correct for. And childhood myopia is especially worryingly rising, and typically myopia is something that normally always begins at childhood. So the normal onset, so when it starts, it's common between 6 and 9 years old, and then it keeps getting worse until you're about 20. And then it kind of stabilizes, but then again, when you're a bit older, you can run into the risk of high myopia. So now, I have a doctorate, but I'm not a doctor. So who am I and why am I here telling you all this? You could very reasonably ask. So I have a PhD in building daylight modeling, so very far from doctor expertise. And in my normal work, I deal with weather data, for example, to model a realistic sky, and with sensor data from building for the control and all of that. But so it happened that I was contacted by an ophthalmologist, so an eye doctor, and a public health researcher. And they were actually looking for someone with my expertise, so someone who would understand how the built environment works, how we can measure it and characterize that. And then from there, things evolved, and we put together a consortium for a large research proposal that didn't get funded, and there is more to discuss about that. I think about funding interdisciplinary research. That's pretty tough. But it formed this fantastic network of experts from many different fields. So many ophthalmologists, you see the names here, but also computer scientists and building scientists and many more. And it was also academic and industry mixed network. So really a great platform for me and for everyone to discuss this issue and to understand how we can help each other. And the reason why the doctors became interested in our expertise is that they can explain only a part of the issue with genetics. So if you have both parents that are myopic, you have a higher risk of being myopic yourself. There's not much escape to that. But that explains it only to a fraction of the problem. The rest of the explanation is now understood to be linked to our environment and lifestyle in modern times. And that's just incredible. So it's also the rise that we are seeing in myopia prevalence worldwide. It's too fast to be linked to genetics. It has to be explained by other factors. And the environment and lifestyle by now have been proven to be such factors. And the most single important factor that has been proven is the amount of time that we spend outdoor compared to indoor. So that's probably the only thing we're sure about at this moment. What makes outdoor and indoor so different is something that we are still trying to figure out, and also the weight of each different component is something that is being researched. But also what was really striking for me as a lighting researcher, and I guess for most of this audience, is that the other factor, the behavioral factor of looking at something close by, so focusing on a book or digital or screen devices, which is the obvious culprit for many in many news, like, well, our youngster keeps looking at her phone, that's causing myopia. That's actually cannot explain by itself that rise in myopia. It's after several research from the medical science that I'm not able to to understand completely myself, but has been shown that it can be pinpointed only as a secondary factor. And the primary factor is light exposure. That's stunning, I think, for us as a field. So what makes it so different being indoor or being outdoor is a number of factors all related to light and our visual experience. First of all, we have the light level, so the amount of light that we receive indoor is just uncomparable to what we receive outdoor, especially in sunny conditions. Then we have, very important, also the spectral composition. This is very debated. There are teams that are really keen on defending the infrared range, other teams that are really keen on the ultraviolet range. We don't know, that's my conclusion. But both are lacking, both sides, the end of our visible, what we define as a visible range, are kind of lacking where we are indoor. While when we are outdoor, we receive the full spectrum of the sun, which is much, much brighter. And then another factor that is also related to circadian rhythm and what has been discussed also in other sessions is a disruption that happens when we spend too much time indoor with electric lighting that we can control ourselves. We're basically disrupted from the natural rhythm of sunlight. So the timing, duration, and pattern of light has a huge difference compared to a natural way of living. And then last, there is also a factor that is not among the top priority, but is still related to visual perception, and is the spatial frequency that we experience indoor versus outdoor. And outdoor, we have much more details and higher spatial frequency. So that's also quite interesting. And the tips that medical doctors give to children, to most people, is just, okay, then go outdoor. That's the best you can do. And I agree with that, absolutely. But what they recommend is 2 hours outdoor per day. If you think about that, that's a lot. And in winter, not all of us might be willing to cycle in the rain all the time. I admire Marcel a lot for that, but I'm not sure I would do it. So the kids that go to school mostly spend their days inside a school building. And especially in winter, and at winter time, when it might be raining, it might be too cold. And for Northern European latitude, the amount of sunshine that we get in winter months is very low. It's 1/4 of the daytime over the whole year, and in winter it's pretty sad. And with climate change, we are adding more reason to be worried, of course. We heard all about that from Skinsia. It's also becoming more difficult to spend time outdoor in summer because it's too hot. Then we have air conditioning inside, and the children are more comfortable, healthier inside. So we are adding more problem to a problem that is already growing by itself. But we can do something with our expertise, and that's something that gives me some relief in this sense, and that is the collaboration with like bringing what I know to the medical community. And what I know is that this light exposure and light quality can be modulated. We can engineer that to have much better indoor climate. And we can look at the building form to start with, something that architects are typically very good at. And we can look also at glazing technology, as we're all here for that, and lighting technology. So those two things together also modulate and change the indoor spectrum of light that we receive, especially also whether that spectrum contain or doesn't contain the edge parts of the visible range. So we see now a massive development of advanced glazing, and maybe we should steer that development in a way that still allow those important wavelengths to come in. We can also reduce energy and cut further wavelength in the infrared range, but still retain this. So it's something we can work with. And the same with the development of lighting technologies. So the spectrum are massively different between different lighting technologies. Nowadays, we're mostly developing LEDs, but still we can control the spectrum somehow. So to do that, typically what I rely on is simulation. And there are a lot of fantastic tools that we use to simulate indoor light in buildings, whether it comes from daylight or electric lighting. But this is a study we did a couple of years ago. The tools got better in the meantime, but still we saw that the biggest error was at the edge of the visible range, where we are interested for studies on myopia to understand what's going on. So there is also an important chance for better development in software tools as well. So this is something I really want to emphasize in my own community, that we shouldn't just look at the melanopic sensitivity part, because this is what spectral lighting software were primarily developed for, and this is what they were validated against. But to really promote healthy building and healthy lighting, we should consider the entire spectrum, and whenever possible, compare that to the sunlight spectrum, which is what we are like trying to replicate inside. So this is kind of the roadmap I hope we will soon follow in my project and maybe other people's project, and that include a strong collaboration between building science and the medical community, IL science in particular, but maybe others, to develop better methods and tools that allow us to measure and model light quality as considering all its different aspects, not just one portion or one specific aspect. And hopefully that will lead us to better and healthier school and building design for schools, but in general, better buildings. And for the medical science, that could also be very beneficial to implement in their longitudinal and field studies. So that's also very important. They have tons of ways to characterize the human eye, but they don't know how to characterize the building, the context around that. And that we saw has a massive influence on what's happening on humans. So that's really something we can help with. And here, I haven't emphasized it enough, but then we should also interlink. This is very much of a silo presentation. It's just one issue and light. But once to strive for better buildings, we should also implement everything together, because buildings are complex things. And so, to conclude, I think some architects do already a fantastic job just thanks to their experience and their dedication. They do a fantastic job at creating this cozy, connected environment, but we can provide them with even more evidence to justify their design and maybe getting more, creating more value for them to sell this to the clients and to others. So the hope overall at the end of all this is that we will have higher lighting qualities in school buildings or all buildings, a much closer connection to nature and outdoors, because still we want to go out whenever possible. That's still very important. And then that would lead to better eye and vision health and then following higher quality of life for everyone. So that's my hope. Thanks a lot.